Life is sweet. Let it sweep you off your feet.
Hi, it's Allie, and I am back for part two, in both official languages, with the fabulous Mary Homer. Hi, welcome back, Mary.
Thank you, Allie. Glad to be back.
Yes, it's been such a long time. Mary, so when we were just chatting and the last time about travel and stuff, and we were just on a real roll there, and I sort of cut it off because I knew that we were going to. I just knew that there is so many adventures that you could share about, and I know there's all kinds of things about your mom and just your life that are really engaging and interesting, and I think that sometimes people don't understand their own stories and the value in them. Just to me already, this the things that we've been talking about, just the value in how you learned to be an adventurer and how your family was connected and the way that you saw things and hardworking immigrant families and the value of saving to do things like these things are all weaved throughout every story that you tell. And so there's the story, and then there's the story and the story and the story. So I just love that. I love that about conversations. I love that about you because you're a very deep person. Like you're so when I'm listening to you, I'm often like, oh my gosh, Mary's such a smarty pants. But you just you, you have so many layers in everything that you do, and you're so intentional. And that's something that I really appreciate you. Like everything that you do, even when, like last time when we were talking, I mean, you shared those two photos that you thought to capture those two moments. Like and then we're using the word essence about your photography, and that's something that I appreciate so much. And I see that because you're intense, Mary. You're intense, and that's a beautiful gift. Like you're a very deep, intense, passionate woman, and you are articulate, and the things that matter to you matter so much. And that has often given me a gateway into rethinking things. I don't know if you knew that, but I thought I would tell you that. I've often just listening to you left and looked deeper at myself or something that we were talking about, something that I might have not gone so deep on. And I appreciate that. So,
Well, thank you, Allie. So it's been interesting for me. All my friends know that I've traveled to a number of different countries in the world, but the one I've traveled to the most has been Cuba.
mhm.
Uh, it is a beautiful country to visit, and we want to get away from the Canadian weather and things like that. But I think for me, I have a soft spot for Cuba because it is a socialist environment, and I lived with my grandmother in Italy during a communist government,
Right.
and I can relate to how difficult uh, pe- it is for those people. I mean, I lived it for a year in communist Italy. I saw how difficult life was for my grandmother, and how children would send money back to try to make life easier.
Right.
And so my hearts are really with the Cuban people, and even those that I talk to the locals when I'm there, and have established friendships with them over several decades. And they are like, oh well, sometimes we dream. We love Cuba, we love the island, we love the weather, everything it has to offer, but we dream of leaving it for a better life. And I say to them, I understand that because my parents left their country that they loved so much because a war had destroyed their lives,
Yes.
and they needed to rebuild, and they came here with that idea of my dad's idea was giving my children a better life.
Yes,
But thank you, Dad, because you succeeded
he did.
in
Yeah.
in that goal. But they paid an ultimate price. And, I say to my friends in Cuba, I know you dream of this, but there is also a big price to pay when you go to another country to have a better life. You are leaving your family behind, you're leaving your friends behind. Yes, you may know the language, but it's going to be a completely different culture. It's not, things don't grow on trees. You have to work really hard. They have no concept of paying taxes. So this is something that's just starting to be introduced to them now. Capitalism is slowly being introduced to the Cuban people now. There's a lot of entrepreneurs and things like that. But it's important to also remind them. And then, we also remind them that, the people you see that come here all the time are kind of the people that are a little bit better off financially than a lot of Canadian people. We're
Yes.
not all able to come here.
No.
Not all Canadians have successful, comfortable lives. And, we tell them, like, we have homeless people there, we have addiction problems, we're taxed crazily. We give them examples of
Yes.
taxes and things. So, we're not here to cry in your lap because your life is definitely way more difficult than ours. But don't think through primrose glasses
Yes.
that you're going to leave here and it's all going to be really rosy posy, because it's not.
Right.
It's and missing your family and your friends and your culture. I saw that with my parents,
Yes.
and they tried to keep that culture alive. So when you entered our house growing up in small town BC, when that door opened, it was like walking into a new area of life. Suddenly you were in Italy. There was Italian music, there was Italian food on the stove, bubbling away. You could smell the Italian foods. Canadians didn't even know what garlic was until the Italians came here and introduced them to it.
Yay,
And
one more reason to love Italians.
but so you'd walk in and you'd smell like, mom's tomato sauce with garlic bubbling on the stove. There'd be Italian music. My mom and dad would be chattering away in Italian. Their clothes would be clothes that were Italian. They would be dressed Italian style. They take great pride in the way they dress. That is a huge priority, is how they present themselves to the world. And there's an actual cultural thing called Bella Figura or Bruta Figura, and it's your good impression or your bad impression. And when you step out the door, make sure you do Bella Figura. Always
Bella
present
Figura.
yourself. Yeah, and it's a real thing. And I would, sometimes I'd say to my mom when she was living in Victoria, uh, after my dad died, she moved here, and we would go back to small town BC to visit. And I would go without her sometimes to visit, and she would say, "Remember, Mary, Bella Figura, right? Bella Figura. Make sure you, because you're representing your family. You're representing
Mhm.
not just you, but you're representing your spouse. You're representing your children. So you do that in your best way possible. And you know how we always say you can only make a first impression one time?
Mhm.
Well, they take that Bella Figura importance like that, except that it's every time. You should try to present yourself in the best way possible. I don't obviously do that all the time,
Well, I think
but
that
I,
I
I
think that you
try.
do that. I think you do that really well. That's really beautiful because that's quite different than I don't know. Sometimes it can have a shallow, only how you look is important feel to it. But I hope I say this right. Bella Figura?
Bella Figura.
Oh, Bella Figura. Figura.
Figura.
Oh,
Like
Figura.
big figure with an A at the end of it.
Ah, Figura.
Figura. Bella
Bella
Figura.
Figura. That's much deeper. That to me, just even just what you're saying is when I go somewhere, I am carrying with me my family, my ancestors. I'm representing them. I'm I'm holding them in my heart. They're holding me up, allowing me to go. I've only recently been really studying and understanding about because I didn't know much about my ancestry, and I've been really diving into it, and it's starting to it more than ever means so much to me now. And so I'm going to carry that for a while. I'm going to percolate that, and I really like that. I might put my lip gloss on even more often when I leave the house now. No, I because it's much more than just how I look. It's the presence. It's how we carry ourselves and how we conduct ourselves in the world.
Exactly. It's your conduct as well as your appearance, and it is shown in many ways. So when you go into an Italian home, their home is always spotless.
Mhm.
Any little Italian mama, her house is spotless because that's what she's presenting when people come to her home. That's the way she's representing herself. I'm putting my best foot forward and stuff. And like you say, people can go, oh, she's really uptight, her house is always clean or whatever, but it's deeper than that.
Yeah, no, no, it's much
It's a
deeper.
representation of who you are and what you value. And people come over, you would never serve beer in a solo cup. You would always have like a
Right.
beautiful glass,
It's
or if you're,
honoring too, right? So it's about honoring. You know what it's making me think of? And because right now, and I'm not that I'm submerged in a hip hop culture, but when I think of, I hear quite often people in rap, hip hop, a different place. It's very much about represent. Represent is a thing of honoring where you come from. So in a way, even though to my ear before I wasn't fully, but you're talking about this and I'm thinking, I think that's really what they're describing. It's it's honoring, it's representing, it's carrying our family with us in every room. And little things like, would you say that if your mom was here? Would you so if I'm Bella Figura, my mom is always here.
yeah.
Hmm. I like that.
Well,
I like that.
it's an essence of who you are. So, when you sit down to have a meal, we set the table. We put a tablecloth on. We pull out the matching china. We have crystal wine glasses. And I mean, my husband and I have been together 37 years, married 35. And even still, I insist that we sit at the table, we put a tablecloth on, and we sit and we have our dinner. And he's like, well, let's just eat in front of the TV tonight. And I'm like, well, we can do that if you want to cook. But when I'm cooking, we're going to honor my efforts, and I've put the effort to prepare the meal. I'll even put the effort to set the table, but you're going to honor me by sitting down and actually enjoying it in the environment it deserves, that those efforts deserve. That's just the way I was raised. And so,
I
yeah,
think
I mean,
I love it. That's beautiful.
there are times when we just have pizza and a glass of wine in front of the TV or whatever. There are those times. But when I prepare a meal, I want it to be honored because I'm honoring you with my efforts, right? So I want my food to be honored. And also, Italians eat with their eyes first. When you sit down, you eat with your eyes first. Something has to look appealing and stuff. It just, I don't know, it's different,
Mhm.
even when we do takeout, it's got to be on like a nice plate. And it's, yeah, it's just the way I was raised. But a lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people don't understand the Bella Figura thing, right? And they just
I
think,
think it's beautiful and it makes sense. And it's not something that I've been doing, but I'm like, I go back to, I'm just learning so much to understand and appreciate so many things, right? I'm connecting more with my dad's family, and there was a big disconnect for so much of my life. And I love them so much, and they're just this amazing, huge, awesome family. And the things that my mom taught me, I'm connecting with that and remembering more now. And when we went to Scotland, I did my DNA from just, well, I know from my heritage tracking it, but there's an adoption in my family, and I had to kind of figure out all these things. But I got my DNA done, and I'm like 80, almost like 85, whatever percent of my DNA is from the Highlands of Scotland. So I just started studying, and I'd watched Outlander. I thought I knew something, but then I started studying the actual history and my family's history. And we went to Scotland. We went to the places that my family, because I wanted to know who are you? Like, where do I come from? And just understanding that. And I think that all of that for me somehow all just sort of goes together. It's understanding, honoring, respecting, and who we carry, whose shoulders am I standing on?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's the view that I have, is from the shoulders that I'm standing on.
That's
I
right.
love that. Oh my gosh, Bella Figura. Oh,
And so, food plays a big part of that
yeah,
too, right? People come over, if they have a glass of wine, there's immediately food because Italians, they like their wine, but they don't drink to get drunk. They drink to enjoy the wine and socialize. And one way of making sure they don't get drunk is to have food when they're drinking. And so that's it. You show up at 8 o'clock at night and you have just had your dinner 2 hours earlier, there's still going to be a platter of charcuterie that shows up because that's just the way that culture operates. That's just the
yes.
way that culture operates. And growing up with food, I mean, my mom, I didn't even learn how to cook until after I got married because my mom didn't have the patience to teach me to cook. I'm sure I wasn't the best student. And I would always ask, well, how much, Mom? How much sage or whatever? And she'd just go like this much, and she'd show me in the palm of her hand. I want you to put this much in, and I'm like, well, is that like a tablespoon or teaspoon? What is? And she'd be like, get out of the kitchen, like you put enough in until like she'd be like, smell it. When it smells like that, then you've put enough in. And I'm just like, it was so
Oh,
overwhelming for me, right? But
right.
I get it now because that's how I cook now. But it took a long time for me to learn to cook and practice and do those things. And then there again is another thing, another passion of mine is cooking. And when my mom passed away, I made sure, Mom, before you pass away, you have to teach us how to make at least 2 or 3 of your really important recipes that.
Yeah.
So she taught my husband how to make her killer bolognese sauce that is just amazing. And she taught me how to make her killer meatballs and and then how to make her homemade gnocchi, which is my favorite dish, and a few other things. And so during COVID, I just, I would just have stacks of recipes. You go through a magazine or somebody shares a email and I print it out and throw it in a stack. Uh, 2 stacks this tall of just recipes. And if we had people coming for dinner, I'd think, oh, I got to make that thing. And I'd spend like an hour and a half flipping through
Right.
these stacks of papers looking for the recipe. So, COVID, we're on lockdown. Well, it gave me the perfect excuse to sort through. If I hadn't made the recipe in 6 months or a year, the recipe got thrown out because obviously it wasn't that important. And the rest of the recipes I compiled and I sat down at my computer and I retyped every one of them, standard font, standard margins, blah, blah, blah. Make the dish, take a photograph of it, incorporate it, and made a 2-volume cookbook for myself with an index so that if, oh, Allie's coming over tonight, I'm going to look under appetizers or whatever and find something, or we have our friends that are vegan coming for dinner, look under vegan dishes and things like that. And I would have these at my fingertips. And some of the recipes have little notations on them. So, like my pesto, Italian Genovese pesto sauce, I learned to make that in Italy in 2018 on that trip. We stayed at a little boutique hotel, and the owner owned a restaurant. And it was the most amazing place. So they had lemon trees and stuff, and up on the rooftop, you got sat under a canopy of lemon trees having your breakfast, and he had his restaurant staff up there preparing whatever you wanted for breakfast, and then a huge array of pastries and things like that. And then at dinner, if you wanted to, you could go to his restaurant for dinner or any other restaurant. But in the afternoon at 2:30 every afternoon, they had kind of happy hour in the lobby where they'd give you free red wine and you could taste this pesto pasta that he made for the happy hour. And on this big blackboard was the recipe for the original Genovese sauce, pesto sauce. So I quickly took a photograph of it, and it was the most amazing pesto sauce I've ever tasted. I came home and I've been recreating it since 2018. So in my little 2-volume cookbook, I have a little note about how I discovered this, like a little memoir
Oh,
of
I
how I
love
discovered
that.
this recipe and blah, blah, blah. And then, I have another one for cookies that look like for Halloween for they look like um, witches' fingers,
Yeah.
right? You may have seen these because I've seen them since then, but probably about 15 years ago, my cousin, who sadly passed on at 55,
Hmm.
she sent me a picture of these witches' fingers all on a plate. And she said, "Look what I made for Halloween this year." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's awesome. Send me that recipe in case I ever need to make these because they're so unique, right?" So
Yeah.
they appear in my cookbook with a little memoir of my cousin
Oh,
Graziella in Italy, who shared this recipe with me and blah, 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 right? And so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's a really important cookbook for me because it has memories as well as my culture as well as and some of the recipes are just Canadian recipes that I love and they're my
right.
favorites and yeah so
Oh my gosh. Do you have that book sticking around here?
yeah, well, I do have it in the pantry. Yeah, but I'm thinking Rick has wanted me to get it actually kind of bound and
Mm-hmm.
just get several of them made up as gifts for friends.
Yes.
That would be really
Wow.
because I don't want to uh, capitalize on it or anything like that. But it's a personal thing
Mm-hmm.
for me. And Rick said, "Well, that's something probably your friends would love to have as a
Mm-hmm.
you know
Absolutely.
yeah." So
We have my friend Liz Eltham. Anyway, she was an author and a chef and a food critic. And when she had ALS, and she was our neighbor, and her Mike, um, when she passed away, Mike called in, invited over. There was a little group of us that we were called the Big Dog Ladies, and we would go and visit with her. And as ALS progressed, and we had Hawaiian parties with her and Halloween parties with her and all kinds of things. But Mike invited us in to go through her favorite cookbooks and choose one or two each when she
yeah,
passed away. And I
yeah,
just, I try, it's so there's something about a cookbook from that, that meant a lot. So that just made me think of it when you said
yeah.
that it's something that's such a treasured memory. I think maybe I'll make a cookbook of our favorite things, and that'll be people's Christmas present this year.
That's a great idea. It's a great idea.
It is, right? I
Uh,
love that you did that. And of course, it's Mary, so it's just thinking of it, of what yours was like. Is it just going to have the recipe, and then of course you're a photographer, so it's going to have the picture, and then you travel so much. I love that you, just for some of them anyways, that you've added the story, because that just makes it even more fascinating. It's like, oh my gosh, oh man. I just love that.
well,
Oh,
cooking is from the heart, right? When
yeah.
you cook for someone, you're giving them a piece of your heart and you're saying to them, welcome. And, for me, it's like if I've cooked for you, you are familia. And I think most Italians feel that way too.
Mm. Well, you certainly feel like that when you ever go into your home. The
Thank you.
way everything is just it's funny that you're saying that. That's right. We've gone just to stop for one glass of wine, and all of a sudden there's a spread before us.
Now
Wait.
you know why. Now you know why. It's like, God, this girl eats a lot.
Oh, no, I just think that you have a lot to offer the planet, and I'm grateful that, you know, time is a very long line, and geography, the world is a very big space. And once in a while we get to share a similar space on a similar timeline, and we get to meet people. And I'm grateful when that happens. I'm grateful that
Yeah.
in all the times of history and all the places on the planet that we ended up in the same little town. And oh, little-ish, it's not so small anymore, Victoria, but I'm grateful for you, Mary, that you're truly a
I'm
gift.
grateful for you, Allie. You have no idea how important you were to me when I met you. I met you a little while after a, a certain period of time after my brother died, but you're the one that made me feel like it's okay to laugh again, and I'll never forget that. That was the most important thing that I recall about meeting you. We met in the pool and we were
Yep.
sitting around talking in the hot tub and we were having silly girl moments and you had me laughing and I thought, oh my God, this feels so good to be able to laugh again. And I really thank you for that. That was a great gift. And you don't even realize you gave me that gift, but it was really wonderful.
Thanks, sir. That means a lot. And in any way that I was part of that, I'm grateful. And then sigh. No, no, that's wonderful. Wow. Mary, is there anything else that you would like to share that um
I think I just there's people, everyone's gonna, I think I just want to share this thought is that everyone on the planet's gonna go through really hard times at some point in their life. Maybe at the beginning of your life, maybe at the end. It could be for some people a good duration of your life. And sometimes, you can't see the forest for the trees or whatever. And there will, something will spark, something will spark. And just be open to looking for it or recognizing it when it happens. Um, whether it be meeting somebody at the pool that allows you to laugh again, whether it's somebody that suddenly suggests you bring a camera along and opens up a new passion, um, whether you're trying to hang on to your memories of your family through their cooking or their culture. Uh, to know my grandmother was so wise. And I mean, I was little and my mom was very sick for a whole year. And sick longer than that leading up to that year of being in Italy. And my grandmother said to me when I was little, you know, sometimes bad things happen and sometimes sad things happen and things will happen that you can't control. But what's really, really important is to remember that those things don't stay forever. It's a passage of time, and good things come back. And, you know, that's life. You know, you have good things, you have bad things, and, you know, and sometimes through the bad things, you learn new good things, and sometimes you just learn to appreciate the good things that you never appreciated before either. So I just want to end on that note from Nona Maria.
Oh, thank you, Nona Maria. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Mary. I really
You're
appreciate that.
welcome.
That's beautiful. Mm.
Thank you, Ellie.
Yeah. Well, so Mary, thanks so much to our listeners. I'm so glad that you came and hung out with us for a bit today. Do remember to like and subscribe. And yeah, thanks, Mary, and thanks for everyone for coming and spending some time with us today. We really appreciate you. And do remember to find your joy. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you found a piece of your joy in this episode, I would love to hear about what came up for you so that we can continue to grow the impact of this show. Thanks again. See you soon. And remember, find your joy.